We are the largest school system in the country and a budget of $32 billion. The state as a whole is looking at something they're calling the portrait of a graduate. What are some of the skills they need to have to be a successful citizen of not only the country, but of the world? A lot of exciting things are happening in public education across the country. The secret sauce is
Welcome to From Classroom to Campus, the podcast where we dive into the ever-evolving world of education. Our mission is pretty simple: spotlight the incredible work happening in schools and celebrate the passionate educators who make it all possible. This is from the Big Apple to every classroom, scaling college readiness and opportunity. I'm your host, Philip Bates. Joining us today, as always, is the wonderful Megan Blessing.
Hi, Philip.
Hello, Megan. Now, before we get to today's guest, I have a friendly but slightly passive-aggressive reminder because, Megan, there's something I really need to get off my chest. It's kind of driving me a little bit crazy.
Philip, please tell us.
Okay, so here's the deal. We see the numbers. There are lots and lots of people watching our episodes, which we really appreciate. But folks, you gotta hit that subscribe button. It's really important. Just give it a click. Hit that subscribe button, and then you'll get notified when we've got new episodes dropping. And more importantly, you'll officially become part of our UWorld podcast family.
Philip, I have an idea.
Okay, let's hear it.
If we don't get to 1,000 subscribers, I am going to sing at the end of the podcast every single episode. So please hit that subscribe button.
Folks, please hit that subscribe button.
Save Philip's ears and save your own.
My guest today proves the saying true. If you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere. And if you can make college readiness work for over 1 million students in the largest school system in the country, that's not just impressive, that's podcast newsworthy. This leader is driving programs and partnerships that are shaping opportunities not just in NYC, but nationwide. Please welcome Ansley Rodolfo, Executive Director of Programs and Partnerships at the New York City Department of Education. Welcome, my friend.
Thank you. I'm excited. I don't know if I made it in New York. I think I'm still sort of trying to make it, struggling. You know, New York is hard. It's expensive. The mortgage is high. Car note is high. But hey, New York is New York. But
you got
thank you for having me. I'm excited. Huh?
Well, you got a big smile on your face, so you're clearly making something work.
I'm faking it to make it. No, it's working. It's working.
Man, I know your personality. It's fantastic. We've got a chance to visit some, but I'm excited for the audience to get to know you. And we love to start out with our episodes with Hook, Line, and Thinker, which is kind of like our little icebreaker activity. So I'm going to start shooting you some questions. Are you ready?
I am always ready. I'm ready.
All right, here we go. So what's the best piece of advice, or career advice, you've ever received?
You get more with honey than vinegar. Yeah, let me tell you. My first job out of grad school, a brand new clinical social worker. I was recruited to be a clinical social worker in a therapeutic foster home, all boys between the ages of 8 to 16. And I supervised other employees in the foster home, and I was difficult. I was basically the B. I was the B right out of grad school. And they complained on me to my supervisor. And my wonderful, beautiful supervisor, Dr. Eleanor Katz, came to supervision one day with me. And normally we would meet on Fridays for supervision around 2:00. And just before 2, she put a bottle of honey on the desk. And she said, Ainsley, you get more with honey than vinegar. And I knew where it was going. So that was my best advice. Be kind.
I love it.
Be nice. Don't be a bee. Don't be a jerk because you're a supervisor and you think you got your master's degree and the other people are somehow not whatever. And I learned pretty quickly. I turned around pretty quickly and I used honey and I got them to do whatever I wanted. And from then on, I realized you get more when you're nice to people. When you appreciate your employees, when you appreciate your colleagues, you get more than being difficult. So that was my advice that I took, not only in my professional life, but also in my personal life. You get more with honey than vinegar.
I love that because she didn't just tell you, she actually had like a visual that would really
She
help
had
you
a
remember
I
it.
was like, what is this butler honey on my desk? And she just put it down on my desk and sat in her regular seat to begin supervision. And of course, she spent time talking about what happened, the interaction between me and the other employees at the group home. And she said, nah, if you had done it a different way, you would have got them to do what you wanted them to do. But no.
I think that's great.
Yeah.
I love that you have a social worker background. I think for educators, that just is such in line with what you're doing now, having that great background. I think that's great.
Yeah. Thank you.
When I was a young principal, I got the advice, is just as nice to the janitor as you are to the superintendent. And I always thought that was good advice too. Yeah.
Yeah, because they can make or break your school. The janitor.
Exactly.
They can they're there every day.
Yeah, from the ground up, they can definitely make it
turn
up.
on the heat or keep the heat off, and then, hey,
100%. All right. What's a small daily ritual that keeps you grounded during those super busy weeks?
So I spend a lot of time talking to my siblings. I am in love with my brothers and my sister. I literally love my brothers and my sister. So not a day goes by without at least speaking to one of them. They live across the country. Some of them live in Trinidad, where I'm originally from. I'm a Trinidadian. So I have thank God for WhatsApp. In the old days, I had a very high long distance bill,
Sure.
Now you get WhatsApp, you're allowed to call for free. But every single day I talk to one of my siblings, and it could just be, what did you do today? And sometimes they say, oh, how was your day? What did you cook? What did you have for lunch? What did you eat? What's going on? And they may tell me something about it. But that keeps me really grounded, talking to my siblings. I think, I thought I was in love with my mother. My first love was my mother. But then I realized that I'm also in love with my siblings.
Hey, that's a good thing to be in love with. I love it. It keeps you grounded, though. I love that. That's awesome.
I really enjoy them. Yeah.
Okay, well, let's dive into the nitty-gritty of this podcast. What is something exciting or innovative happening right now in NYC public schools that you wish more people across the country knew about?
Well, a lot of things are happening in New York City public schools that are exciting. As you said, you started by saying we're the largest school system in the country. I heard a statistics that if we were a city, we would be the 9th largest city in the country after Philadelphia.
Wow.
And we have a budget of about $32 billion is our budget, and about 100-something thousand employees, and just under 1 million kids. And we have over 1,000 plus schools, 500 plus high schools. So there's always great innovation, exciting things happening. But I think for me, 2 things are happening that I'm really excited about for the future. One, the state as a whole is looking at something they're calling the portrait of a graduate. And basically is, how should a kid who is leaving our school, graduating from our high school, what are some of the skills they need to have to be a successful citizen of not only the country, but of the world? And they just put it out. It was adopted last year across the state, and every local school district is tweaking it or sort of bringing it to life and operationalizing it. So I'm excited about the portrait of a graduate. And basically, it's like 5 things they're looking at: communication, collaboration, critical thinking, right? Future forward sort of thinking, and one other. And literacy across the content, right? Literacy across the content era. And they're saying, hey, if we could have a kid or a student graduate from our system in maybe New York or Ithaca or Westchester County, Long Island, wherever within the New York State, coming out with these 5 skills, the probability is they would be a pretty successful kid, both in the country or globally. And I thought about that for a moment, and it made sense. Why? I was talking to a surgeon a couple years ago, and I was working on a project of trying to figure out how we could increase kids of color in the medical field. Like, could I build a pipeline to get more kids of color thinking about medicine and going into medicine from the time they're in high school straight to medical school? And I said to the surgeon, I said, I guess I got to get kids to do more with the STEM courses and, biology and anatomy and all that. And he said, no, we don't need a kid like that in medical school. I was like, what? He said, no, Ainsley, we need a kid who could collaborate, who could communicate, who could problem solve. We could teach them the medical part in medical school. But you won't be a successful surgeon if you can't work on a team, if you can't communicate what's happening with the patient, if you can think on your feet and make a decision right away in the emergency room or the operating room. That's what we need. In fact, we need kids. We actually do better when the kids are coming in with a liberal arts background, with a broad background, as opposed to a STEM or science background. And I said, wow, interesting. So the portrait of a graduate is sort of taking that as sort of the base and saying, if we get kids, with these key things built into their learning, then they should be able to do well both in college or career, or if they go into the armed services or entrepreneurship, wherever they go, they have sort of these skills that would allow them to do well.
Yeah. How does that translate into instruction, you think, like on a day-to-day basis?
Well, I think a couple of ways. One, really making sure that, the instruction, the curriculum, the lesson plans have these tenets built into it, right?
Sure.
So sort of helping teachers move away from being more teacher-focused to more student-focused, getting kids opportunities to collaborate more in the classroom, almost like peer-to-peer education where kids sort of learn from each other, trial and error, right? I'm also a big fan of this whole idea of teaching up, which is a model developed by Carol Ann Tomlinson. We teach all kids as if they are advanced learners, right? Rigorous learning, and then we scaffold it. Then all kids should be able to rise to the occasion and sort of do better. I was fascinated. Have you ever met her, by the way?
I have. Yeah.
Isn't she
I got to go out
fascinating?
She's amazing. I got to go out to UVA one summer. Oh yeah, and she teaches in such an amazing place, and it's such like a hotbed for instruction. I guess really great instruction in the country.
Yeah. So I heard her speak at ASCD conference maybe about 20 years ago. Long story short, I invited her to do some work here in New York, in Brooklyn, and she has been doing some consulting for us here in the district. And she's now retired, by the way. She sort of spent most of her time out in her home in North Carolina, in the Outer Banks. So I'm fascinated that she lives on the water on top of that.
Sure.
So I love her as an expert, but then she lives on the water, so I'm even more intrigued. But I'm really fascinated by her work. So a lot of it sort of plays into that portrait of a graduate in terms of what's happening in the state and what's happening in the city.
Yeah, my experience with going out there and hearing her talk, we brought that back, the concept of finding students' interests and really developing those. And I was an elementary principal at the time, and we got a grant for like $10,000, and we pumped it into this program. And we brought in chefs, we brought in all these people who did all these different things, and we took time, maybe once a week, once a month, I can't remember. And they would come in and try to help bring out the excitement and these skill sets that these students didn't even know they had. And she was a big driver of that. I mean, she inspired a lot of that stuff. She's awesome.
Oh yeah, she's really good. Just so you know, she has a disciple who's sort of dealing, I guess taking up her work and taking it to the next level. Her name is Christina Dubé. She's also at University of Virginia. So Christina Dubé is sort of her disciple, and I've been working with Christina Dubé also. So I'm excited about that. So
That's
that's
great.
one good
That's
thing
great.
that's happening in the system. One, the whole idea of Portrait of a Graduate. And then the other piece that's happening in the system is this whole work that we're doing around future focus learning with students around connecting their interests with careers, right? And sort of exposing them to a lot of internships and mentorship and giving them a taste of the real world as they think about college and careers. So that's really exciting work that's happening. And then within the district, we are doing a lot of work around badging and certification with Cisco and other companies. We are really excited about that. One, out of necessity, New York City is the largest school district, but we also have a large percentage of new American kids and kids who may not go straight to college, right? Because of life circumstances, they may have to go to work after high school. They may have to take a year or two off, not as a gap year, but really because of necessity. They cannot afford to go right to college. They have to help their families. Or they may not be sure. So we are trying to figure out, could we prepare them to at least earn a living wage while they figure out if they want to go to college? And one of the ways is, could these badging and certification, like in Cisco Networking Academy or Adobe has a whole certification group of stuff that they offer, that this kid would at least be able to come out of high school with this extra piece that could give them a pretty employable living wage job when they come out of high school, if they don't go straight to college or a career or the army, the armed services or something like that. Yeah. So I'm excited about those two things.
Oh, you should be. I mean, that's realistic and it's practical. I mean, it gives them an opportunity, even if that opportunity isn't immediate, they'll eventually have that opportunity if they decide to go to college. That's awesome.
Yeah. And the wonderful thing about that is a lot of the Cisco stuff, it extends into college. So if they decide to go, they could actually continue on that, on that trajectory.
Pathway. Yeah. Next question I was going to ask you, you've kind of hit on it. I mean, New York, just a super diverse population. I mean, so diverse. Yeah. How do you approach such a diverse population when it comes to something like career and college readiness?
Yeah. So you're right. We have, I don't know, maybe 100 plus different nationalities in our public schools, or maybe even more, I think. Everything we try to translate into languages, right? Different languages, just to give you an idea. Anything that comes out publicly is translated to maybe 20 or so different languages because we have so many diverse population. But I think in terms of college and career, I work from the philosophy that one size doesn't fit all with our kids. That's one. And two, sort of allowing the kids to realize that even if they fail now, they may try again. So we have a lot of programs where kids sort of say, hey, I don't know if I should be taking a college course now, an early college course now, because I may not be prepared. And I say, hey, go ahead and sit in the class. If you get an F, I'm going to work with a school that you don't get an F on your transcript, but if you get an A, you're going to get an A on your transcript, right? So they like that idea that I'm sort of personal and I sort of work with them, because kids and parents are always scared that you put a kid in an early college program or you start thinking about college right away and their kid may not be ready for it. What happens? How does that affect their transcript in the future? So I always try to think about that, but a lot of opportunities, opening up a lot of opportunities, opening up a lot of different pathways. We do stuff with Ivy Leagues, we do stuff with HBCUs, we do stuff with community colleges here in the city, CUNY, SUNY. So something for everyone. The arts, STEM, liberal arts, that's one. But then, as I said, we also have kids who may not want to go to college. So then we look at the certification, the different pathways. We have a lot of partnerships with organizations. So I'm a big proponent of partnerships and really bringing that together, right? And sort of holding the kid. I'm a big believer in a holding pattern, which is from my social work background, which is, could we
talk about that.
Hold this kid while we have them in our care and make sure that we carry them to the end, right? And make sure the whole idea that everyone is supporting the kid. The teachers, the university, their parents, their friends. It's harder said than done, but it works, right? If you could sort of build a system. So, I try to make sure that when I work with schools, when I work with teachers and principals, that, that philosophy comes across in my support for schools and my interactions. And as I think about college and career across the spectrum in New York City that has so much diversity.
Sure. And there's just opportunity gaps because of
Yeah.
socioeconomic, because of a variety of
Yeah.
things. You've obviously having tremendous success. What are some blind spots or some areas where you're still really trying to work on closing those achievement gaps, those opportunity gaps for your students?
Yeah. So we've had some success, as you said. We had a lot of success. I
Mhm.
think, some of our biggest success that I want to just mention is we are SAT school day district, which means
Yeah.
every kid, as you know, gets to take SAT twice, paid for by the district in the 10th and 11th grade, right? So as a kid in New York City, depending on your socioeconomic background, you might be able to take SAT for free 3 times because the district pays for 2. And then, as you know, the College Board has a waiver program where
Correct.
if you're
Yep.
certain, right, the College Board pays for you. So you could actually take SAT 3 times. So I'm very excited that we became a SAT school district and I was part of that work. We were also a AP for All district where we sort of said every kid should be able to take at least one AP course. And we support
Absolutely.
the kid because that, at one time AP was sort of gate kept, right? Certain kids were allowed into AP class. You had to get a grade. You had to get a certain recommendation from your guidance counselor, or a teacher recommended you to be in AP class, or the principal decided if he's going to have you in his AP class. It was sort of this gatekeeping thing happening with AP. And New York City said, no, we want to open up AP for all kids who want to take an AP course, right? And every school should at least offer at least 5 AP courses, enough for kids to take it. So we are building towards that. But the opportunity gap that remains there is we didn't do a good job with AP performance. So we did a
Okay.
good job with AP participation. More kids are taking AP, but I think we need to do a better job with getting more kids to get a qualifying 3, 4, 5 on an AP course. How do we support these kids from elementary school to get a qualifying score on AP? So that's one opportunity that I think we still need to work on and that we are actively working on. The second piece, back to our earlier discussion, is how do we help kids to be producers of knowledge as opposed to just being consumers? I am a big fan of the IB curriculum and
Yep.
IB.
Yep.
I am totally sold on IB. I was a proponent of IB at one point in my previous position where I could have sort of fund IB courses and fund IB schools. I'm a fan of students learning from each other and sort of producing knowledge and not only consuming knowledge.
Everything you're talking about, Ansley, is aligned with, to me, what the new modern teacher should look like. It really should look like, sound like, prepare like, and that's more that facilitator.
Yeah, I am totally
That's more
with you.
student to student, and everything you're preaching and everything that I think you're encouraging is along that. And it's along with the research now. I mean, research supports that students learn differently, they consume knowledge differently, and they learn from each other just as effectively, if not more so, than from the instructor.
Yeah, I am totally with you. So I am totally intrigued by the work that Peter Knowles is trying to do around getting rid of the Carnegie unit. So they're actually trying to figure out how to flip that on the head and moving away from this sort of industrialized way that we've been teaching and setting up schools for 100+ years, right? So I'm excited to see where he's going with that. And I wish that New York City public schools were part of that work that's happening there. I know he has about 9 districts across the country that's sort of part of this whole work reimagining high schools that they have going on at Carnegie. New York City, I don't think is part of the 9. But I wish we were part of the 9. But I've been to some of his lectures.
Well, and it's what you said about IB. Super costly to bring IB into every school in New York, but those elements, those wonderful best practices that are happening in IB schools, it's
Yeah.
the same thing that's happening in some of these other pilot districts that you can bring elements in. It would be
Yeah.
amazing to just completely, start from scratch in so many ways instructionally. It's just not going to happen that way. So we just have to
No,
kind of
no,
gradually
no.
bring it in, don't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which means, a lot of exciting things are happening in public education across the country as a whole, I think.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty bullish on the future, on where we're going with public education.
Good segue. What do you think, smaller urban or rural districts could learn from, New York City, and what could you guys learn from them?
Yeah. So I think what they could learn from us is, one, go bold. New York City, we for a while there we went bold, and I think we continue to go bold and think big, right? Even as a small district, still think big, right? So
Sure.
think big for your size, right? And really be innovative, and people will catch up. There's going to be a lot of people on the sidelines, naysayers, but people come along. So that's one. And even that is an opportunity. I think we should have even gone bolder, New York City. We could have gone bolder in some of the stuff. We were pretty bold in some of the reforms that we undertook and some of the system changes, but I think we could have actually gone bolder in some areas, right? But one, go bold. I am not a fan of pilots, by the way.
Okay.
And I know in education, they like pilots. Let's do it small, test it out, see if it works, tinker with it, come back, try another pilot, 2-3 years. By that time, you've lost a whole generation of kids by the time you work to a pilot.
Yeah.
That's my thinking. So I say, if you have a sound scientific idea, go with it. Forget about the pilot. If you have the funding, the political will, the backing to do it, go it. You'll work out the problems, whatever problems arise, but go big with it. Forget about this pilot phase. I'm not
I
too much
love
of a
that.
fan
Absolutely
of,
love that.
of pilots. And I know that's not, a lot of educators like, what is he talking about? We need to do pilots to sort of learn and test out. You could do that within a big, bold, innovative something you want to do in the system. So that's another thing they could learn from us. And then the third thing really is sort of stay grounded in what the school system is designed to do in terms of educate kids. Before I went into education, I worked, as you know, in child welfare and mental health. And we had all these other things we were doing. And my supervisor at the time said, at the end of the day, guys, don't forget, our job is child welfare. Our job is to make sure kids are not hurt. So yeah, we're doing all these other things. But at the end of the day, our bread and butter is to make sure kids are safe. No matter what we do, that's our job in this agency. So I say the same thing for education. You do all this other stuff, but at the end of the day, your job is to prepare a kid to be successful post high school. And
Sure.
always bring it back to instruction. It's all about good practice, teacher practice, and instruction in the classroom, engaging, critical thinking, rigorous coursework. That's your job at the end of the day. Bring it back to instruction.
And I definitely think it starts with principals. I mean, it starts with principals
Yeah.
in schools. Can you give me some examples of some principals in New York City schools that you feel like have been transformational and really been bold and brought some incredible things to campuses?
Yeah. So right now, a lot of work is happening around AI. They're really excited about AI. We are doing some innovative work in the district. Some schools are doing some innovative work around AI, particularly to support teacher, to support instruction, but also with student learning, to help students with their learning, particularly kids who are in special ed or L learners. We are doing some interesting and innovative work with special ed kids and English language learner kids in that AI space, in helping teachers with develop lesson plans, support instruction, support curriculum development, and syllabus, the syllabi. I'm excited about that. That's one piece. So we have some principals who are doing great work there. We also have some principals who are early adopters in stuff that they
Okay.
are thinking about, what's next, not only in the technology space, but how they could reimagine school as a whole in terms of the classroom setting, furniture design, thinking about opening up the space differently, how they reconfigure the desks, the chairs, where they place certain offices, So we have principals who are even looking at within their space, the physical space, how to make that more student focused, more friendly and engaging for students, right? Have you heard of High Tech High? Have you heard of High Tech High?
Mm-mm. No, I
Yeah,
haven't.
you got to look it up. High Tech High,
Okay.
it's a charter school. It's a charter
Okay.
school, but I visited that school, High Tech High, and it's basically like going into a super college type of atmosphere where there was a free flow from classroom to classroom. Kids were working on a project, but then as you said, the teacher was more of a facilitator, sort of guiding them on their project. So there were some elements of IB, some elements of using technology, a lot of technology, again, High Tech High. The kids designed their own exit project, right?
Okay.
To get out of high school. It's pretty fascinating. We have some principals are taking some of those pieces from High Tech High and incorporated into their, to traditional public schools. And then, of
Mhm.
course, as I said, a lot of our principals are starting to think about, other pathways that kids could take other than the traditional college pathway,
Yeah.
and opening up certification and badging and thinking
Mhm.
outside the box. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's that willing to take risks. I mean, it's that
Yeah.
willing as that instructional leader to. I think you're mentioning something important. Going out and seeing other things.
Yeah.
I think principals are guilty of, hey, if it's not around me and I haven't seen it, then
Yeah.
I don't know about it. So I'm willing to travel, or I'm willing to watch a webinar, I'm willing to read this, I'm willing to study up on things, because there's amazing things going on across the country. I mean, you get to see it and you get to bring it back to New York City, but principals should be hungry like that as well, I think.
But you are right. Most of the stuff that I brought back to New York City, I saw in another district.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
saw it in another
Absolutely.
district. I remember I went to Houston ISD. And at that time, the superintendent was Terry Greer, who I love. He was one of the first districts to do AP for all and sort of break down
Ah,
barriers to AP and move away that gatekeeping in AP. And I came
yeah.
back and I met with the then chancellor, and I said, if they could do it in Houston and they're a smaller district, we could definitely do it here in New York, you know?
Yeah.
So I visited LA Unified, and there was some great
Mhm.
stuff happening in LA. Chicago public schools have great stuff happening there. So you're right. Going out and looking at what's happening across the country in other school districts, or conferences, as you said, podcasts and different places, and taking ideas and bringing it back to your school or your district is definitely a benefit. Yeah.
Well, and it sounds like AP participation is going fantastic. You've brought in some great things, but it's that performance side of things.
Yeah.
So what's your next? It sounds like your next big thing to tackle is AP instruction, and how to, that bar's high, and how to get
Yeah.
kids to that bar. So what are you thinking? What are some of your ideas of kind of moving instruction forward in AP classrooms?
So I think for AP, I want to lean in more to Carol Ann, sort of model this whole idea
Okay.
of teaching up. So I actually met with Dr. Dubé last week, and I said, hey, let's start to think about how we could use your model in AP classrooms with AP teachers, right? Because I do think one of the issues that I'm seeing is some AP teachers, they need to improve their practice themselves and their own
Mm-hmm.
scholarship and their own instructional pedagogy,
Mm-hmm.
right? To teach AP courses. So we need to do a better job of teacher preparation to teach AP courses. That's the first thing. And I'm trying to
Sure.
figure that out with her and with other folks, how we do that, how we support the teachers
Yeah.
and improve their pedagogy and their content knowledge around whatever
Sure.
AP course they're teaching. Back to continuous improvement, back to lifelong learning. You know, it would be great if we could get to a place where a AP teacher is somehow connected to maybe what's happening at a university level or college level
Yeah.
in their content area as they go back into the high school and teach that particular
Yeah.
AP course. So that's one. The second thing is, unfortunately, a lot of kids are coming with deficits from elementary and middle school. And by the
Mm-hmm.
time they get to high school, short of reteaching everything, you have to
Yeah.
figure out a way to sort of plug the holes, right? And that may mean extra tutoring or extra classes in the morning or afternoon, supporting parent at home. You know, a simple stuff like I remember there were times when I met with parents and I said, "Hey, you can't he can't take care of his sister anymore. I know you have him babysitting his sister because you have to work and he comes home at 4 o'clock and you have him looking at little Cheyenne from 4 until you get home at 6. He can't do that if you want him to be successful in an
Mm-hmm.
AP class.
Mm-hmm.
Because by the time you get home at 6 and you cook dinner, mom, and he have dinner, it's 7 o'clock, he's now tired, he gotta go to bed.
Yeah.
There's no time for him to do homework or just extra
Yeah.
studying that's required in an AP course. You just have to build, that extra learning and
Yeah.
studying outside of homework. And I had to work with moms that you're gonna have to find somebody to look at Cheyenne.
Sure.
He cannot do it. So how do I sort of support it on a larger scale with parents, getting them to understand how they support a kid who is in an AP class, right?
Mm-hmm.
Getting teachers to that level that they really um, have the skills to teach an AP class. That's sort of the short and medium term. That's the short and
Yeah.
medium term. The long term is really from elementary and middle school,
Mm-hmm.
and getting them to the point where when they're in high school, they don't have the deficits and they could
Yeah.
transition straight into not only an AP class, but in other honors classes, if it's an
Right.
IB program they're in, or we have a lot of early college courses here in New York City where kids are taking college courses from City University and State University in New York or private institutions, HBCUs. We have relationships with, different HBCUs where kids go into courses online, and if they pass the course, they
Mm-hmm.
get the credit. That's a lot of work. But so
Yeah.
I'm trying to
That
figure that out. You know,
Yeah, the foundational stuff has got to be there. I mean, the foundational things of reading and writing and math and those basics have to be there. What was interesting you were saying about teachers is we've got a lot of new teachers to AP,
yeah,
and they haven't had the time to learn the content. Maybe kind of working their way through the ranks, and we
yeah,
also don't have near the number of APSIs. I mean, APSI, AP Summer Institutes. We
yeah.
used to have a ton of those. So
We
teachers
used
would
to
do
have a
just like
ton
you were
of those.
saying.
Yeah,
Yeah, they would go to universities. They would meet together and they would learn and build their craft up in the summer to bring that back to students. And that's a challenge now. And like you were saying, if you can connect still those professors to those high school AP teachers, nothing but benefit there. But how to do that's tricky.
how to do that is tricky. It's
Yeah,
costly. You got to pay the
it's costly.
university. Most of the
Hmm.
times in New York, I don't know, in other districts, you got to pay the teacher overtime because most likely it's happening on a Saturday or it's
Yeah,
happening after their regular school hours. So now you got to pay
yeah.
them their time, right? Their time is worth money. You
Hmm.
got to pay them. And then there are all these other incidental costs that goes with it.
Yeah,
Food and travel and,
yeah,
curriculum design and all of that. It's costly to do it, but the investment is
yeah,
I think it's worth it. So we're trying to
yeah.
figure out this year how do we sort of, the data showed us that we are doing a great job, as you said, with participation. So
Sure.
that's there. We've conquered that hill. But the data also showed us that we have big opportunity gaps and big achievement gaps with performance. And unfortunately, I thought we had turned the corner on this, but we have not. The kids who are still performing at the lowest level are Black kids and
Mm,
Black boys. So
mhm.
if we were to rank them, unfortunately, it's Asian kids, white
Sure.
kids, kids, Latino girls, Latino boys, Black girls, Black boys in terms of
Hmm.
performance.
Hmm.
I thought we had moved the needle somewhat.
Sure.
No. So
Well, if
we got
is your participation though increasing? I mean, is your participation increasing with all those groups?
with all the groups it's increasing. Even
Uh,
with kids in special ed and kids with L
yeah.
kids, special ed kids, it's increasing. But the
Sure.
performance, and I say to schools and to teachers and to leaders, a kid go through a whole AP course and they come out with a 1 and a 2. What's that going to
Yeah.
do with them? I know
Yeah.
again, there was this whole discussion and debate that just being in an AP class is beneficial and it helps you, with rigorous coursework and build your skills to do better in your regular classes. I get all of
Mhm.
that research. But at the end of the day, if I am a kid going through an AP course, I want to pass the course because that's where I get the credit in college.
Sure.
I
Yeah.
need a 3, a 4, or a 5.
Yeah, and I think it's making that. I mean, it's college level content. I mean, AP is college level content, and it's making it more obtainable for
Yeah,
students that potentially have lots of gaps.
yeah,
And the College Board doesn't just provide that. They don't say, "Hey, I'm going to provide you an AP U.S. History curriculum, and by the way, I'm going to drop it down a few levels for your student who might have some gaps."
yeah.
And so that's
No,
left to the teacher, it's left to the school district, or it's left for a great tool that comes in and kind of can facilitate that. But it's hard. It's definitely
it's
a hard, big challenge. Every day, educators work tirelessly to keep high school students motivated. But despite their best efforts, too many students still feel lost in a system that doesn't always support their success. At UWorld, we believe education is about unlocking a future full of possibilities. That's why our team of educators created teaching and learning tools for the advanced placement exams. Powerful, easy to use resources that help students master even the most challenging concepts. Content that features dynamic visuals created by world-class artists and interactive elements that spark curiosity and a love for learning. Our mission is to help every student reach their full potential. Whether that means earning valuable college credit by excelling on AP exams or achieving their dream SAT score, UWorld is here every step of the way. Every day, across the country, students are using UWorld to turn their aspirations into reality. Discover how UWorld can help your students succeed. Visit collegereadiness.uworld.com to learn more. So, looking ahead 5 years and looking ahead at all the great things you're doing now and moving them forward, what do you see for New York Public Schools when it comes to college and career readiness in 5 years?
what I would like to see is more alignment between high schools and colleges and university, number one,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because I think the data is starting to show that kids are turning away from colleges and universities, that
Mm-hmm.
they are thinking that, hey, is this degree worth it? And I think that's we going down a slippery road there because at this point, a college degree is still needed to move into the middle class,
Mm-hmm.
right? And as a country, that's where we want to go, right? We
Sure.
want to grow the middle class, not shrink the middle class. And I say that to kids all the time. I have a couple of kids. Um, I had this program, as I told you, where I was working with kids to get more kids of color into Ivy League schools.
Mm-hmm.
And they would say to me, "Oh, Mr. Rodolfo, but you come here and you got your Gucci shoes on and you drive your BMW. And I said, hey, I went to school. What's wrong with you? I went to school. How do you think I got this? I went to school. I went to college. I got a master's degree, and now I'm in a doctoral program.
Yeah.
Follow me. You'll get your Gucci shoes. You'll get your Mercedes Benz. You'll get your trips to Europe. You'll get these things, right? A college degree most likely gets you that. It's not the only way,
Sure.
but most
Sure.
of us are not going to be Kobe Bryant. Most of us are not going to be Celine Dion and Whitney Houston, right? Most of us are not going to, we done born with a big and, parents who left us tons of money. Most of us are working people who got to work to get to where we want to. And if you want to be in the middle class or the upper middle class or move up, a college degree is still the best bet at this point in time.
Yeah.
So, I'm trying to figure out, hopefully 5 years from now, New York City is much more aligned to colleges and universities where there's a more seamless transition and there's a back and flow of knowledge between high schools, public schools, and universities. Because I think a lot of innovation happens at the university level and at the college level that could be translated to K to 12 and benefits K to 12, and how do we sort of harness that and make that happen? That's one thing I'm hoping for the next 5 years. The second thing I'm hoping for the next 5 years is the steam that's picking up with Timothy Knowles and the XQ Institute and really looking at reimagining high schools really continues. And it doesn't just happen in small pockets as focus groups and as labs, but how do they sort of scale it up across the country? And let's see how we could sort of change K to 12 public education and move it into the real 21st century. So I'm hoping that we are part of that work there.
You're a public education champion, which I think is really fantastic.
Well,
it seems like
hey.
you're optimistic.
I am optimistic because, listen, you hear how bad we supposedly do on the NAEP, right? Right? How bad, America, we at the bottom in terms of performance on the NAEP, ranking, right? Or we behind Finland and kids in Finland, or we behind Japan and blah, blah, blah. And I say to people, but it's in America that we came up with Facebook and Google, and it's in public education in America.
Absolutely. Yeah.
This is where innovation lives. So we obviously doing something right that we as the leader in the world in technology, in finance, in medicine, we are the leaders. And it's public education. Most of these people who are leading these great tech industries and these tech companies, they went to public schools. So at the end of the day, it's America that's still leading the world when it comes to innovation, technology, in all the fields. We are still the leader. Everybody comes here to go to university.
Yeah, and I don't see that going away. I mean, I'm with you.
No.
I mean, I'm very bullish on it and very optimistic about it. And I think things like you talked about AI a second ago, I think educators are going to find ways that AI can make them even more effective. It's not going to replace them. It's going to make them more effective. And it's going to allow them to, close achievement gaps potentially and do a lot of things that have been really hard and labor intensive. Because you start making teachers' jobs easier in terms of time and start allowing them to focus more on those great instructional things that get them to pass those AP tests, and maybe we move forward a little bit quicker.
Yeah, I think the only thing. So I'm very bullish, as you know, very hopeful. The piece that keeps me up at night is I hope we don't move away from that philosophy of America as a city on the hill, right? Who said that? Ronald Reagan said that? We're a city on the hill. Well, somebody said that. Someone
We're going to
famous.
Google it here and find out.
Google that. Who said we're a city on the hill? And we are trying to figure out how do we move everyone up. How,
Yeah.
and right now there's still pockets, large pockets of people being left behind. That keeps me up. Kids being left behind, workers being left behind, right? If we could conquer that, we're in a good place.
The way you conquer that is having the best public schools. I mean,
Yeah.
I think you're right. And the way we keep, that city on the hill is by continuing to invest in our public schools, continuing to be innovative with our public schools. And my favorite thing you said today, coming from a principal that used to do 1 million pilots, is you don't need to do a pilot if you know it's going to work.
Exactly.
Push it out. Yeah.
Push it out.
Invest in it. Go crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
go crazy.
exactly. So the wonderful Megan Blessing always likes to chime in at the end because she takes copious notes. So we're having this we're having this interview and she's going, okay, I want to talk about that. I want to talk about that. So she's going to chime in here, Megan. What you got for us?
I love your use of the word copious.
I know.
That was
I
fantastic.
like that word too. I'm going to take it. I'm going to start using that. There are some words I want to start using. That's one of the words I'm going to start using.
Hey, Ainsley, do you know what time it is?
No, you really want me to tell you the time? I think
No.
it's like, I don't know. I was
It's
just,
time for Megan's Moment. I'm sorry, Ainsley.
It's definitely time for that. I love that.
I love it.
sorry.
I love it.
Ainsley, what we're
That was
doing.
beautiful, by the way.
Don't lie. Ainsley, what we're doing is until we get 1,000 subscribers, I'm going to sing at the end of the podcast.
You want to sing?
So I'm going to sing. So if you want to save Philip's ears in your own ears, you better hit that subscribe button.
Hey.
So I think that's a great plan. And I hopefully they won't have to hear you sing for long.
Yes. But maybe
Hopefully
she's
not.
a good singer.
Maybe. What do
Hey.
you mean?
Let's get at least one bar here. Give me a bar.
A bar? Oh!
Just
It's
one.
beautiful.
I don't think that's going to work.
How many bars was that?
I don't think that's going to work. I don't know.
Okay. Anywho, who said we shall be a city upon a hill was Ronald Reagan.
Hey!
You're
Ainsley
right,
got it.
Ainsley.
Yeah, Ainsley got
I
it.
don't know. Is that
man.
showing?
Thank you
But
for
is,
looking that up for us.
I
but is
got the
that showing
cue.
my age that I remembered that?
Ainsley, we were alive too. I may not sound like it, but I was alive too.
Oh my God.
You are a very young man. Ainsley, I also love how you said that here in America, our test scores may be low, but we are creating the leaders of the world. My question is, what do you think we are doing in public education or the American culture to help create the leaders of the world? What's the secret sauce?
The secret sauce is two things. We have two secret sauces in America. One, we continue to still have a broad education, right? Meaning, in a lot of countries, they said, hey, more STEM. The kids have to be all about STEM, more science. In America, we still have a broad education offering in terms of liberal arts. We have science. We have it, right? You learn broadly. When you go to college, you have a broad learning that happens. You have to take some liberal arts courses for requirements and core courses. You have to most likely study a language, right? Right, at least in your freshman year, maybe up to your sophomore year, you got to study a language. You got to do a little bit of science if you don't want to major in science, right? And even in public education, we still have a broad spectrum of learning. So I think that is what benefits us in terms of innovation and technology, that we are not tunnel vision on just the sciences, right? So that's one, right? In terms of that we continue. The second thing is I think our diversity as a country, that's, I know some people don't think that's a strength. That's a strength. Our diversity as a country, we are a very diverse country. Again, as you and I talked about, there are pockets of, issues that we need to figure out. But we still a young country. Next year we will be at a 250 year of the founding of our country in 2026. But relative speaking, we are still a young country, and I think we're going to figure that out. The wonderful thing about Americans, if you're a Native American or this is your adopted home like me, we are pretty optimistic people. We are pretty, at the end of the day, we always see the glass as half filled
Half full.
as opposed to half empty. We are optimistic.
Yeah.
And we are, at the end of the day, most of us are our brother's keeper. We genuinely like our neighbor. Americans, we like our neighbor. And I see it on the road. I travel all the time. I'm a big proponent of road trips. I love road trips, by the way. I love road trips. And the reason I love road trips is not because I like to drive. It's because I love going from state to state and just meeting people. I like meeting people. And I realize most people like meeting people. We like meeting people. We like being in community with other people. And it doesn't matter race, nationality, sexual orientation, status. We genuinely love our neighbor.
I can't imagine you running across somebody and them not liking to meet you. I think they would be very excited to meet you.
And I like meeting people. I like
Absolutely.
meeting people. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's contagious. I think, it's in so many countries, they test students at 12, 13, and based on how they perform on those tests, that's what you study forever and ever.
Yeah.
And I think you said it perfectly. We don't believe in that here.
Yeah.
We believe that you should have a wide variety of things, because to ask a student at 12 or 13 to take a test and say, okay, this is your pathway, this is what it's going to be, I don't think that's fair. I mean, a lot of students aren't ready for that at that particular moment.
Or the other way they go is outside of testing and sort of saying, hey, based on your test, this is where you go. In a lot of countries, you sort of follow your family's footstep. So if your family were in agriculture and work the land, the high probability is you're going to work the land, even if you want to be a dancer. Even if you really want to run away and go and become a performer, you may end up actually having to stay back and work the land because it's set up that way that you're going to follow in your family, particularly your father's footstep. We don't have that in America. Your father may be a laborer. Chances are you could be the president. And we have seen it. We have seen it where the president didn't even have his father in his life, one of our most recent presidents.
Yeah.
And he became the president of the greatest country in the world.
Yep. Talking about Obama.
Yeah. So
Thank you, Ainsley.
Absolutely.
I could listen to you all day long. I love your voice. I love your accent.
oh, thank you.
Yay, Trinidad.
You're amazing. Thank you so much for sharing, your experience and what you're doing in New York Public City Schools. We're super excited to know you, and we're super excited to kind of watch you do your thing and watch you continue to help students, in the largest school district, in the country. Yeah. So if you can make it in New York City, you can make it anywhere. Absolutely.
And who said that? Megan, who said that?
Was if you can.
Megan,
I remember singing this in music class in sixth grade.
It's a song. It's another great American who I love. I'm giving you 2 minutes. 2 seconds.
Frank Sinatra.
I did it. From Hoboken. Frank from Hoboken.
Got it.
He was from Hoboken, New Jersey.
Well, thank you for today. We really appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ainsley. We want you to come back.
Oh, thank you for the invitation. Thank you so much.
So thanks everybody for joining us today. I want to appreciate my fantastic production team. They are the reason that this actually gets to happen. Also, hey, we want to see your comments. We want to hear your show suggestions. If you got a guest who just has to be on our podcast, please let us know. We would love to have them on. It's always fun to interact with our amazing audience. Hey, and on top of that, listen, break out of that comfort zone, do something that's hard, push yourself. That gets the best version of you. Thank you very much. Thanks for joining us today. Take care, everybody. The opinions expressed by our guests and hosts are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views from Classroom to Campus, UWorld, or its affiliates. You can find us on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Please remember to subscribe and leave a 5-star rating. That really helps us out. Thank you so much.